again. Let's talk about hashtag no more cuck briefs. I believe I've done my rounds and I heard there's something going around.
No more cuck briefs.
What's going on? Hi there. Welcome to the CMO Corner. And my name is Tawani Kumalo and I'm your host. For the month of June, we're doing something special. We've seen the challenges that marketing is facing. We know the high unemployment rate for the youth, and we're doing something special. And I want to introduce to you the BRAVE Future CMO Code. I'm going to be joined by Mr. Musa Kalenga, who is the Group Chief Executive Officer for BRAVE Group and the founder of Forge. And we're going to be talking about what the future of marketing looks like, how we lead that and not only adapt, and how we make sure that we empower the current youth and the future CMOs. So join us over the next 4 weeks as we give you breathtaking content that will challenge marketing today. Brother.
Yes, sir.
We're back here again.
We're back.
And today we want to be talking about briefing. Briefing in the age of AI. It is possibly my biggest, and I'm sure most people in marketing, bugbear to deal with the brief.
Yeah.
You are the writer or the creator and the instructor or the instructor.
Yeah.
And you don't know how your brief lands on the other side.
Yes.
And I've always wondered, even on the other side, I've never spent time in agency, but I always wonder on the other side, the discussion that happened once the brief is received. Yes. Does the receiver have the ability to judge if something is great? Is it like a great brief?
Yeah.
Can they send it back? I've never had anyone saying to me, actually, Tabani, your brief is bad. Can you please rewrite it? So then you just don't know.
Yeah.
So I think it's a critical conversation for us to have, understanding the briefing space, because I think that's the start of the process.
Absolutely.
And then everything goes through after that. So if the old saying says garbage in, garbage out.
Yep.
So if what I feed into it is bad, then the results will be bad.
Completely.
So let's talk currently in this traditional form, briefing, and how you've seen it happen, and possibly the pros and cons of how it's currently done, and then we'll go into what it potentially looks like in the future, and how we can all benefit from it now.
Yeah. So as a receiver of many, many briefs, the first reaction is, what the? So, and hence why this is the first feature we built, right?
Yeah.
You know, there's you're right. There's a lot of hesitance in most people in agencies, especially the younger ones, pushing back or asking for clarity or saying, no, man, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And so as a result of that, because of the skew power dynamic, you end up taking on the brief and just trying to execute what's here without applying your mind.
Yeah.
So that's the dynamic that exists today. Briefs get put through to agencies. It gets received by someone who was never taught to interrogate it and ask the right questions.
Yeah.
They just enter it into the system, and they hopefully somewhere down the line it gets solved.
Yes.
Right? That's a major, major problem. For seasoned marketers and seasoned agency executives, they know very well that when the brief is first compiled, either you compile it together, or there's a very clear process of us getting clarity before the brief proceeds into the system.
Got you.
By the time it goes into the system and it's a bad brief, that's where all the problems start to fall apart. So the logic behind us building a brief scoring feature was we were trying to solve for both the clients creating briefs and also the agencies to be able to generate briefs.
Gotcha.
On the client side, obviously, providing the supply of briefs. There's dynamics that have influenced why briefs are getting bad. Number one, in many cases, you've got younger brand managers, younger marketers that are putting these together.
Yeah.
They have some understanding of the brand, but not the full context. They haven't been there for a long time. That institutional knowledge doesn't necessarily sit with the younger people. So there's a multiplicity of factors that has driven down the quality of briefs over time. We've also seen that in the case that a brief is not great, there isn't a willingness or a humility to come and ask for help, right?
Gotcha.
So with younger brand managers or marketers who maybe are nervous about the quality of their brief or don't know where to start, I've seen very few that will come to the agency and say, hey guys, let's work together, or show me what the quality should be or something. Yeah. There's always a big assumption that what comes from the client is right and it's at the correct quality.
Yeah, true.
So the brief scoring feature allows us to take the IP that we've developed over the years, which is the the gift and the curse of receiving multiple briefs, some good, some bad, some, different sectors sometimes have different kinds of briefs, but
Yes.
you'll find that FMCG tend to have better briefs.
Yes.
You find that telcos and banking and insurance tend to have better briefs.
Gotcha.
Not, it's not a blanket statement, but they tend to. But FMCGs are the most detailed. Now, there's a double-edged sword, even to a very detailed brief. We had clients who give us 31-page briefs.
Yeah.
That's also not helpful, right? Because it just throws everybody off. You're giving us a lot of information. Where should we focus? Like, what are the hot points? So even the discipline on client side is not there. So first, we took all, I think it was something like 1,200 briefs and try to understand what are the key elements of a brief that make it a good brief, right? So the first feature is built around 7 key features.
Okay.
The first
feature of Forge.
Of Forge, yes. Built around 7 features. Those features ultimately allow us to say that if these 7 things are in your brief, then the probability of it being a good brief is higher.
Gotcha.
Things like an overview of the brief, things like your brand value drivers, things like the target audience, things like a key message, things like what kind of inspiration will inform this brief. So all those elements are captured in the first feature. And then on top of that, we add a quality score to each one of those aspects.
Gotcha.
The quality score is a guarantee to the creator of the brief that this particular section of the brief is a 71% quality score overview, as an example. Now you've got a definitive way of knowing whether it's good or bad.
Gotcha.
If you're an A student and you say, I want to get to 90, we've built what we call human in the loop. So you can edit that particular part of the brief and get it to a higher score, right? And so you repeat that process 7 times.
Gotcha.
Because each aspect of the brief has been broken down accordingly. So
each aspect is then scored.
Correct.
Okay. And then there's an aggregated score.
Correct. That's a combination. So now what quality assurance happens is, as a client, I can see, there's a definitive number that says this brief is a 40% brief. Therefore, I know before it gets into my agency that we need to fix this brief, right?
Gotcha.
Because that's an assumption you leave until it's far later in the process. Similarly, it can be an empowerment tool to the agency to go, guys, you're sending us briefs that are 40%.
Gotcha.
We should actually be only getting briefs that are 70% up to make sure we manage the integrity. So from the supply side, that helps them solve that problem. From the agency side, number one, similarly so, you can take a brief, no matter what level of quality is from your client, and you could run it through the same process and be able to get the quality score for you to be able to proceed with the agency workflow. So the brief scoring is really important, but I think it's helping to solve for both the supply side and the demand side.
So that's interesting, and there's a couple of things as well that you try and, at least I think, that you try and capture in a brief, which is the engagement piece.
Yeah.
You want to almost like capture people, keep them engaged and excite them.
Yes.
What I find from what we've seen and what I've created, I'm also like, I'll confess, briefs tend to not be inspiring anymore.
Yes.
You almost create the brief with so much information, so much data, that the receiver is not necessarily inspired or engaged in what they're actually taking on.
Yeah.
Has Forge almost, I don't want to say fix that, but have you structured it in a way where I could plug in some form of inspiration that can drive engagement as I receive it?
No, we haven't, because that's a human thing.
Got you.
Right. So this is where the technology complements humanity. What we've given you is we've reduced the amount of time it takes you to write a chunky brief. What do you do with the time you now have because the chunky brief has been written on your behalf? You call the agency into a room, and you, as a human, deliver the message to the agency. That's where you need to inspire them. And then the brief becomes what they reference to go, what did Tawani say when he was talking about that thing? Oh, now we've got the quality scored brief we can reference.
Got you.
So I think we get into a dangerous space when we outsource what humans should be doing to technology, right? And I think that's also the mistake that we're making when we start to get disappointed by technology not delivering. Unless you're going to build something, I don't know. I don't even know what it could be. But how do you expect a software application to create excitement in a human being? You get what I mean? So it's asking too much, in my view. So the gift of a platform like Forge is now that you've had the junk done by the AI, you have the time to even develop a little short video, to even do a little piece of theater, to even do, I wish we could bring this idea of experiential briefs back, right? So you take your agency and you say, Me as brand manager X, I've already, the brief is there, I've articulated it. But I'm going to take you to the corner of Brie and Wara Wara, and we're going to sell Magwinya the whole day.
Yes.
Right? And during that, I'm going to brief you on what problem I'm trying to solve.
Yes.
That's an experiential brief.
Yeah.
Because then they go, oh, this is the target audience.
Yes.
Oh, this is what they experience. And then when they read the brief, it's just the cherry on the top, right? So my challenge to marketers, CMOs, brand builders, is let's go back to experiential briefing, man.
Yeah.
You've got a technology now that can take care of the junk, the stuff you shouldn't be doing. Therefore, you and I remember very vividly in my career, the best marketers, to your point, had the most inspiring briefs.
Yeah.
And that wasn't because they managed to write it down better. Yes, obviously there's clarity in what they wrote down.
Yeah.
But they could put people in a room and they could create an energy about this thing that we want to solve. And they could say, we're going to win awards. And everyone goes, yes, we're going to do this thing.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's where the line in the sand for me is between what humans should do and technology.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And you know, I love what you're saying, because we are so worried and obsessed about the fact that because of AI, because of technology, it's going to take our jobs, yada, 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 yada.
Yeah.
And I think what you've clearly articulated is with platforms that are AI enabled, you've got the role of a human and the human touch that is needed in that process.
Yeah. And you know, it's such an overtraded thought, right? Because everyone is saying that. Everyone is saying, AI now makes us more human. But until you see it in your slither of the world, like practically speaking, when you say it makes me more human as a marketer, what do you mean? This is a classic example. The briefing conundrum. You need to spend time briefing human beings. And the same from an agency point of view, because I keep on saying to our agency is that now that you've got the power to develop briefs, how are you informing those briefs, right? So you as person X working on a retail brand, you should be saying, team, as a collective, every month, we're going to spend X amount of time in this retail brand's environment just to go and see what's happening and take notes. And with that, we can come back to the office and we can quickly turn out briefs, right?
True.
So you're being more human. You're going into the space, you're being, this is what's happening. That's what I see there's an issue here. Then you turn that insight into briefs. So it works both ways, right? It works both ways.
You can't take the platform into the retail space.
You can't say, go eat the Nandos and then tell us what we should, that's for you as a human to do.
I get you. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Now talk to me about Forge in totality.
Yeah.
And I think let's use this opportunity for you to showcase, and I think you've spoken about the briefing elements and how it's scored.
Yeah.
I think take me through the full bouquet of what the offering is and how people can actually play with Forge, and then we'll talk after that about like how people reach out and use Forge.
Sure. So I mean, in true technology fashion, we're iteratively building the platform.
Yeah.
When we launched the first platform, the first version, there were 4 features that were available. The first feature, which I've touched on already, is quality scored briefing. That is a very simple process of entering some key information about the project, getting a very simple one-line description, and then being able to build out those 7 elements that at the end of it gives you a quality scored brief. So that's feature number 1. Once you're done with a quality scored brief, you can then go into what we call scoping, project scoping. So the iterative nature of the platform can take the quality scored brief. We've got algorithms that then turn that quality scored brief into a scoping process. There's a natural language engagement. So basically the platform has a chat with you and asks you a bunch of things about what you need to do. And based on your inputs, it then can give you a timeline, it can give you a budget, and it can give you a resource to be allocated, right?
Gotcha.
So that's the second feature.
So before you move ahead, I'm assuming that's more, this I think, while I'm hearing you, very beneficial for the agency, because once they receive the brief, then they have to scope it.
Correct.
To send it back to clients.
Correct.
Got you.
Similarly, certain clients are investing in internal agencies, right? So they also have to make, a very clear way of how they quantify their time and their effort.
Yes.
So there's a reciprocal application, but you're absolutely right. It helps the agencies be able to do that far quicker.
Okay.
The third feature is then you can go into strategy development, right? So because the iterative nature of the platform is that it takes intelligence and it puts it at every step of the process. So now you've got a quality scored brief, you've got a scoping, that gets converted into a master prompt that goes into the AI, and then it comes up with your first version of a strategy.
Okay.
In a very similar way, the strategist has got an opportunity to interact with it. So as we call it, human in the loop. So they can tinker with the strategy. We've built a search function on platform now. Okay. So you can actually search the web and then it pops up with what it is. You can import that into your brief. You can add imagery, into your strategy, add imagery. You can download that version of the strategy, so you can take it off platform, and you can ultimately get your strategy approved on the platform. That's the third feature. The fourth feature is once you're done with strategy, you then go into creative brainstorming.
Gotcha.
The creative brainstorming simply takes all of those component elements, turns them into master prompt, and allows our creative team to start brainstorming from the word go. As you know, brainstorming tends to be a very challenging thing because you have to find inspiration, you have to be in a certain mood, blah, blah, blah. And so platform always gives you versions of ideas that you can look at immediately.
Gotcha.
And so that's the fourth feature. It gives you big ideas, it gives you the rationale around them and that kind of thing, and then you can have debates and discussions. And then you can create key messages, and then you can actually visualize what that looks like on platform as well. So those are the key features. As I said, we're trying to ensure that we have an end-to-end solution so that people can get the benefit of seeing how you go from a brief to an idea that's ready to be executed.
So as you know, Forge is a partner of this podcast. And guess what? As we've been speaking about the briefing of Forge and using that platform, if you scan this QR code that's going to pop up just now, you've got the opportunity to take a special discount that comes from subscribers of the CMO Corner podcast. Now, you have an opportunity to better yourself. You've got an opportunity to better your team. I implore everyone, subscribe to the page, use and scan this QR code, and have the opportunity to trial Forge at a discount courtesy of the CMO Corner. All the best. Now, have you received any form of resistance, either from client side or within the agency around the process? Because I could almost imagine it's something that's so scary, but it's something that you should, if you're smart, at least take on. Because you are better off utilizing something like that makes your brief quicker, better, faster, it's scored. It's done that piece for you. Versus resisting something like that.
Humans are humans. It's funny thing about humans. So the first reaction to any kind of innovation is always resistance, right? Unfortunately, that's just how humans behave. The interesting thing is that from a client side, when they see the technology, they ask us why we would do something like this.
Sure.
Because they say, well, what then is your role as an agency?
Yes.
Which I completely understand. They're kind of going, well, this is kind of making you redundant. So why would you even... And I'm like, well, why wouldn't we do it? Because if we don't do it, trust and believe someone will. So we often have that conversation where they're a bit perplexed around, why are you doing this? So I say to them often, I'm like, the onus to push the boundaries, the onus to innovate, the onus to kind of find out what's next sits with us as the service provider. In the context of being an African agency, independent, 100% Black-owned agency, the onus is for us to try and move this thing forward. And the discomfort of moving forward is something that we've taken on. Certainly my leadership personality takes that on. And I feel very strongly that if we don't do it, someone else will. We don't want to be sitting 3 years in and going, yes, we should have thought about that. We should have done it. But now it's too late.
True.
Right? So that's the interesting client response we get. Then internally, I think equally people are mostly perplexed because, when you feel like there's a threat coming to you, it's either fight or flight. And I've seen both. I've seen some people go, they see it, but they're not interested. People see it and then they try and hijack it, or they try and curtail it, or they try and find reasons why it shouldn't work. And so find all the reasons under the sun why I shouldn't use it. Which once again, initially is confusing as a response, but it's human nature. So back to the sensitivity that I've had to develop, because I'm one of those that's like, are you stupid? Like, why? Right? In the beginning, I was very much like, how is? And so I had to think about the mentality of someone that feels as though this thing is about to, take away from my livelihood. This thing is about to affect me fundamentally, and then kind of rewire my own thinking. And even specifically with traditional creatives, as we call them, the brainstorming feature, we changed it from being creative output to brainstorming, right? Because it was a sleight of hand to say it's not replacing that your creativity is adding to the thing. It's helping you to brainstorm to get to an output. So the languaging of the platform we've had to change. We've had to, very much bake in this idea around, if we can take away time from the stuff you shouldn't be doing, we're investing time in you doing the things that you should do. Why? Because when I sit with creative directors and I sit with creatives and I say to them, what do you wish you could be doing more of? They all say the same thing. I wish I could daydream more. And I'm like, okay, so how are you going to daydream more? I don't know. So I'm saying, okay, so if I can help you, if I can help you daydream more, will you use the technology? Oh, how are you going to do that? Then you get them a little bit tied in. Because indeed, they are right. The truest creatives should be daydreaming more. They are very, very right. but we run a business. So your daydreaming, they're not billable hours.
Yes.
But we found a way that we can still move work forward and you can still daydream somewhat. So you have to then be quite nimble with how you are positioning this thing, and you have to try and bring people on the journey.
Brilliant. Now, as a founder of Forge, what I'm interested as an entrepreneur, it's always brilliant when you've got a brilliant idea. But if there's no market, it makes it tricky. I believe you've got clients that are keen on using it and have used it.
Yes.
I want you to talk about, one, those brave clients, how you utilize Forge, and the results that came from whatever brief you might have received.
Okay. So I can't mention them by name, but I will mention them by sector.
Okay.
So from a stats point of view, at the moment, we've got 143 users on Forge. 83% of them return every single week, right? Which is great. They're a combination of small, medium agencies and some clients. We found really early and good success within financial services. One of our clients that committed to doing pilots and POCs with us, which is great. And we've managed to win awards as well as a result of partnering with this client. We're in a process now to see how far we can go into their team to be able to make this actually their ecosystem for them to create work, which is great. We've got another FMCG client. We've been through a process of the initial upfront, checking out the technology. So the process is kick the tires. Does this thing work? Is this fake news? So we passed that process. It's a global FMCG business, and so we're about to roll out to some of their agencies and internally as well. The stats, for those that we've done POCs, is that on average it increases time by or cuts down time by 86% on average, which is great, and we're able to prove for the case to say the quality that comes out of the end when you have human in the loop is also almost indistinguishable, right? It is a big thing for us to prove. And then from an agency point of view, interestingly enough, we're getting a lot of kind of small to medium-sized agencies, and I can understand why. Right? They don't probably want to have lots of humans. They're finding clever ways to scale. They're finding ways to up their value proposition. But there's been quite a lot of interest from Sub-Sahara and SADC. So we've got agencies just outside the borders of South Africa, and they're having really interesting use cases because they're helping us understand how workflow happens in those markets where you don't have massive budgets, you don't have the luxury of big retainers. So it's a really promising early start, and we are going to double down on investing and ensure that we can get out of the Africa context and into other emerging markets where they could use the technology.
Love it. In closing, let's talk about #no more CAC briefs. I believe I've done my rounds and I heard there's something going around.
No more CAC briefs.
What's going on?
No, it's a campaign, man. It's a campaign. It's the spirit of the audacity and ambition of a technology that we believe to do what it needs to do, right? So no more CAC briefs is really a call to action, for lack of a better word, to say, we all know what we don't want, and we don't want CAC briefs. Clients don't want CAC briefs, right? Why don't they want CAC briefs? Because they know that CAC briefs will cost them money, and they won't get them the outputs. Agencies don't want CAC briefs. Why? Because CAC briefs don't give them the opportunity to work on amazing things. We're stuck in revert number 66 because we want a CAC brief. So it is in nobody's interest to have CAC briefs in systems. Hence why the hashtag no more CAC briefs.
And when do we start?
With the CAC briefs? It's going to be rolling out the next 2 weeks. So we've been doing some thinking around visualizing it and making sure it's not offensive to people. Because always you can see we're trying to be a little bit edgy. That in 2 weeks' time it'll be live.
Nah, super. I think for me it's phenomenal what you've done. I've had the opportunity to play with the platform. And I can tell you that it's going to step change everything in the industry. And I say that because I've played with the platform. The scoring of briefs is life changing. Because you, like I said earlier on, you just don't know what you've said. And for the receiver as well, it's just like, do they get it? Do they not get it? But once you can quantify something and there's a benchmark and a marker of success, if you want to call it that, that helps. So I'm interested to see, as it opens up across the value chain, what it actually looks like.
100%.
So I believe right now you've got the briefing part, which is open for the public.
Correct. Briefing, and went live with strategy as well. So strategy is also now live.
Briefing, strategy is live. And then the rest is coming up.
Correct. So coming soon to a theater near you, as they say.
Okay, cool, man. And that's it. Briefing in the age of AI.
100%.
Thank you, brother.
#no more CAC briefs.